Hey, today I'm talking about the 3 Insidious films that all focus on the Lambert family. So the names of those 3 movies are Insidious, Insidious Chapter 2, and Insidious The Red Door. First up is Insidious. This is a 2011 film starring Patrick Wilson and Rose Byrne, and for the longest time I had gotten this one and The Conjuring mixed up. I've watched the Conjuring movies a bunch, but like when I first watched them I was so confused why we never saw the scene of Patrick Wilson walking around in a blank void with a lantern, and I was like, where is that scene? Then this movie. 2 different movies, same director. But yeah, no, it's an interesting little movie. The basic premise is Patrick and Rose are a married couple with some younger children. One day their son falls into a coma, but doctors can't figure out why. Well, it turns out maybe there's some demon stuff going on that are making things bad for them. And yeah, it's a nice little film. The strongest aspect of this film is without a doubt the lore. It's so interesting, and I'm glad that they got to explore that with a total of 5 films. It's so interesting, it really grabbed me. I will say though that the dialogue is not great, and the delivery, like the performances. I'm a big fan of Patrick Wilson, I'm a big fan of Rose Byrne, but this is not their strongest performance by far. I kind of think it was intentional, but I don't really understand the intention behind that. And I will say too that I was kind of bored for the first 2/3 of the film. Once it got to the 3rd act and things got weird, I was fully on board and was like, okay, this is really interesting, this is really fun, I like where this is going. It's creepy, it's intense, we're just like sitting in this scariness, and that's fun. I like that. So yeah, I liked the film, it was fine. It didn't blow me away by any means, but it definitely grabbed my attention. Would I recommend it? Cautiously? Like, if you like horror movies, yeah, I think there's stuff for you to chew on, but if you're not really into that genre, I don't think it's gonna really grab you or be that interesting for you. It's not my favorite of these 3, but it's not a bad film either. So like, yeah, if you've never seen it before and you're curious about it, check it out. Just don't go in with the highest expectations. But if horror's not really your genre, then it's okay to skip this. Next up is The Conjuring Chapter 2. This is a 2013 film and just a direct sequel to the last one. Like, picks up moments later, which I loved because that was such a great ending. I won't say what happens because it'll spoil the first one, but they're not just doing the exact same story again. It is different and it's interesting and it's good, story-wise. It does flash back at the beginning, and I do think the flashback was needed, but I don't think the execution of it was the best. Firstly, they dubbed one of the characters, which was incredibly distracting. And I get the intention that the older version of the actor has a very distinct voice, but like, no, that was a bad choice. The flashback was explaining the history of Patrick Wilson's character when he was a kid, which they did tell us about in the first one and felt very dramatic and intense, but having it summarized here made it less dramatic. It felt more like a weekend of stuff being kind of off. The way it was presented in the first one felt like they were being stalked constantly, like it was this ever-looming hand right over their shoulder about to pounce at any time, but here it just kind of felt like whatever. This film spent half of its runtime being split between the main family and then the paranormal investigators, and I did not care for the paranormal investigators. They're in the first one too, and like I get the intention of expanding the role because like that's how we learn more stuff and whatnot, but it's too many dumb comedic moments that just feels so out of place. I could not care less for them. And then again, just like the most awful dialogue. Like there's one that I wrote down. There's a character who's in the sort of afterlife world, the further, who's not dead. And then a character dies and they see them there. And so the character that dies goes, well, if I'm seeing you, I know what that means, which already told us what we already knew, is that he's dead. So they're already restating the obvious. But then the character who's alive in the further literally tells this character that he's dead. So like we immediately know just with their eyes that the character's dead. And then they tell us 2 more times the thing that we already knew. So that's just bad writing. You don't need to think your audience is that dumb. Regardless though, it did the same thing as the first one, wherein the 3rd act is really incredibly strong. The 3rd act is so weird. It does some neat things. I liked the timelessness of the afterlife. I liked the visuals that they had. I loved where it was going for. Like it really worked. It was such a good, fun 3rd act. And I enjoyed it a lot. It didn't didn't save the movie. Like, it's definitely a step down from the first one, but it's not a bad movie by any means. So I would say if you enjoyed the first one, then yes, continue on. This is definitely worth a watch. It's not as good as the first one, but you definitely need to go at least this far into the series. So yeah, no, it was a nice little film that I would recommend if you enjoyed the first one. And lastly is Insidious The Red Door. This is a 2023 film, actually the 5th film in the franchise. Numbers 3 and 4 are both prequels, so that's why I skipped them. I got a crush on Rose Byrne. I wanted to watch the Rose Byrne movies. That's the real reason, but I did find a logic to watching just these 3, so I'm fine with my choices. Anyway, this was directed by Patrick Wilson, his directorial debut, and this is actually my favorite of the 3. And that's because the basic premise is it's 9 years later. Their son, who has been traumatized by all this stuff, is now going off to college. But at the end of the second one, they mind wiped both Patrick Wilson and his son so that they don't remember the events of these films because they think, oh, that's how we'll stop all of this crazy stuff from happening again. Well, turns out that just suppressing your trauma leads to more trauma, which, oh my God, that's a great premise for a film, and it's executed so well here. And like, technically the mystery of the film is just those two guys trying to figure out what happened 9 years ago, and we know the answer to everything. It's still interesting. That in and of itself is impressive. I did not care for the roommate character. She was the comic relief. She was very over the top. It was just not my jam. The son did need someone to bounce off of, so like that character needed to exist. And yeah, Rose isn't in this a ton, but it makes a lot of sense why she's not. And so then when they do use her, it is very impactful. I very much so found the story very interesting. Again, they nailed the third act, but this one all the way through, it's interesting and keeps your attention and isn't riddled with dialogue issues as much as the other ones. There are a couple lines that are like, oh my God, but on the whole, it's solid. So yeah, I like this a good solid amount and would definitely recommend it. For sure if you have seen the first two, but I don't know if you could watch just this one, because so much of it is relying on you knowing about the other stuff. It could potentially work to go just into this. They do explain everything because it's them trying to figure out what happened, but like, I don't know, it'd be interesting. I would kind of recommend against it, but if you just gonna do one and you don't mind missing out on the backstory stuff, yeah, you could do it. If you do that, or if you have done that, let me know. I'd love to hear what you think of this from that perspective. But yeah, no, I enjoyed this a good solid amount and I would recommend it. Alrighty, now for today's rankings. First up is, in chronological order, Insidious, sitting at number 150 in the liked section. And then after that is Insidious Chapter 2, sitting at 170, again in the liked category. And then lastly, above it, is Insidious The Red Door, sitting at number 89 in the quite liked section. And this is out of a total of 213 old movies so far this year.